теперь я попрошу вас сфокусироваться на своем дыхании. Прислушайтесь к его ритму. Вдох, выдох, вдох, выдох, вдох, выдох. С каждым выдохом просто позвольте своему телу расслабляться все больше и больше. Расслабление нарастает, и можно погружаться все глубже и глубже. С каждым выдохом представьте, что вы лежите на большом, мягком и пушистом облаке. Вы в безопасности, вам тепло, вас поддерживает это облако. Здесь только вы, я, майор, и Макс Хатлер.
Hello, I'm Max Hattler. I'm an experimental media artist, animator. I'm from Germany, I live in London, and right now I'm in St. Petersburg. I work with the medium of animation, but I'm not really interested in animation as this idea of animation, using characters and telling stories. I've never been interested in making cartoons. I came to animation really as a kind of by accident, or it took me a while to realize that that was the medium to work with. I was making music and I was drawing and painting, and I always saw them as separate disciplines. Eventually I realized that animation is the way to bring these things together, to make paintings move and to visualize music, you know. So I came to it from a completely different angle. In my work I work with abstraction. My inspiration for making films really comes from everywhere, I think. I usually start with some really vague point of departure, and then I develop it, and often I don't really where exactly that reference came from. But I think I'm more influenced by painting, and I'm more influenced by music or by sound art than by other films. I work with different techniques, using stop motion, digital, analog, 3D animation. I use different softwares like After Effects, Flash. I try to kind of not be led by the technique, but by use whatever technique fits the idea I have in mind, or the kind of, the concept. There's various themes in my work. I'm kind of interested in this idea of visual music, of what happens between abstract sound and abstract image, mainly. There's a series of works that deal with some kind of idea of the spiritual world, also kind of connecting to physics, so it's kind of between physics and metaphysics. There's a series of works that have more of a political aspect. So I made a couple of films dealing with war and peace. Collision deals with this this conflict between the West and the Arabic Islamic world, and I'm not really on any side here. I'm more interested in maybe giving a different viewpoint onto the political situation. So Collision looks at both sides and equates them with kind of abstracted iconography that's based on Islamic patterns and American quilts and the colors and shapes derived from the American and Islamic Arabic flags, using that as a kind of metaphor for an underlying humanity, possibly, or kind of pointing out the similarities between the two cultures rather than looking at the differences. Sync is a collaboration with particle physicist. I had various discussions with, and we were looking at the concept of time and what time actually is. What I tried to do with Sync is visualize in an abstract way all the different timescales that exist in our universe. The fact that time was created at the beginning of the universe and all the physics was created at that moment. So I tried to translate this idea of everything being synced to this initial moment. Tried to translate that by making one giant disk, which which we're zooming out of as we're progressing through the film. So all the movement within the film is actually created from a rotation which is constant. So this large spinning disc is just kind of the sink, the center of everything, the reason why it functions. 3 acts is about this idea of action and reaction. So it's really a very simple idea of if you fight back at the other, then it's going to end in disaster, and if you send them love, then they have to reciprocate. You know, they can't keep fighting because it becomes kind of pointless. Obviously that's a very naive and idealistic view of things, but I think sometimes art is allowed to do that. Your Highness, that work is about football being a game that it's completely foreign to me. I don't understand. So to me it looks like people in the grass. It's a longer story. Basically what happened was this film has a previous version which is called Theme for Yellow Cruiser, which is a music video which looks exactly the same, except it has a song with it. So that music video was just my friend Johannes ripping out lots of grass, and we just had lots of fun making it, and the band liked it, and so it became a music video. 4 years later I was approached by a German weekly Die Zeit, which was during the last World Cup, and they were commissioning some films on the subject of football, and I said, don't ask me because I hate football. And then they said, well, that's fine, you know, you don't have to love football to make something. So I took this film and gave it a new soundtrack, and it became Your Highness. I was approached by Animate Project, which is an organization in the UK that supports experimental animation, and they were commissioning a few films on the subject of 2012 apocalypse. So I made an abstract film called Shift, which predicts what the future will look like after the apocalyptic shift. I just finished a project called X, which was a projection for a water screen. It was projected on a screen, on a kind of fountain on Regent's Canal in London. So one part of my practice includes audiovisual live performance, which came out of, I guess, the wish to take my work into a live context. Again, kind of relating back to music and maybe envying musicians who can play, you know. So animation can be quite a lonely and long process. So it's nice to get out of the studio occasionally and kind of do something with the public. Yeah, I started out, I guess, VJing, and then I think as time progressed, I sort of tried to become more specific about the live work as well, and to do more specific, not VJing clubs, but rather work with the sound artist and do more like a concert scenario where the sound artist or musician ideally would be improvising to the image while I'm improvising to the music. That obviously requires a kind of setup that allows you to do that. So for the last 2 years I've been playing with a custom software called the Hattlerizer, which enables me to do that. My film installation Sync won the best video installation at Multivision. So they approached me and asked if I'd be interested to come and to do something. What happened is that we did a workshop. The participants of the workshop I was really impressed with. People have some very strong work that they've made in the past, and most people had very strong skills as well in software and in animation timing and techniques. So I think we managed within the four days to make a piece, which I think we can be quite happy with. I was directing the group, and the participants were animated. Collaboration can be difficult, can be very fruitful as well. I think many animators probably are control freaks. That's why they go into animation, because they want to kind of create their world and, you know, control every parameter of it. So at first I found it very difficult to work with other people, and I think as I'm kind of progressing, maybe it's getting a little bit easier. But having said that, I sort of still want to be in control, so I try to be in situations where I can direct and then work with other people in a team. The difficulty of it is that I never quite know what I'm doing as I'm making a film. So that means if other people work with me, or if I work with other people, then they sort of have to accept that maybe things might change along the way, or that we're sort of trying to figure things out as we're going along. So if people are up for that and it works then it's great to do that in a team, because you can do things much faster, and you can, you know, I can incorporate techniques that I can't actually, that I don't master myself, and you know, so you get all sorts of ideas coming into the project. If someone isn't up for that, then I think it's very difficult, you know. So it really depends on the circumstances, but yes, I like collaboration, but not in every case. I think what's most important is to try to stay true to your own vision, or try to find out what that is and pursue it and keep making work, I think. Lots of people in animation make one film or two when they're at the university or at art school, and then they start working as animators and forget to actually make their own films, which sometimes I find sad, because there's some really great films and you want to see more from those people, and then they but I guess it depends on what your aim is. If your aim is to work as part of a bigger production, then then you're achieving your aim by doing that. But I think from an audience point of view, sometimes it would be nice to see more films by certain people. I'm Max Hattler for cinema blog St. Petersburg.